Hey everyone, Brendon here. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me. So I've got something a little bit special for you guys today. You know that I normally do album rankings, top 10s, album reviews, discussion topics, things like that, and that I am a big progressive rock fan, especially of the band Kansas. So today I'm going to do a book review on Kansas. It is called Let It Be Your Guide, the Kansas Album Review. It is written by Tim Durling, came out on June 11th of 2024. Tim Durling from Tim's Vinyl Confessions. You may know him out there from the YouTube world. And this features 29 contributing writers, including yours truly. I'm in this book here myself, which is what makes this extra special for me to be able to review this for you today. And I'm going to get into it here in just a bit, give you a little rundown on it, read some excerpts out of it, break it all down, and show you some of the artwork and things that's inside it. We'll do that here in just a bit. But before we start, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also, leave a comment, hit like. All those things do help support my channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, if you turn on notifications, you're going to stay up to date on everything. You won't miss anything, including this, a review for the new Kansas book, Let It Be Your Guide, written by Tim Durling. So I want to start by reading you the excerpt on the back of the book, the hype, the thing that gets you into it. And so starts off, it's got, some of the bigger font here, and then we get into this part, and it says, U.S. progressive rockers Kansas began in the 1970s and are still pushing musical boundaries today. Let It Be Your Guide is an in-depth investigation into the recorded works of Kansas. Starting with their 1974 self-titled debut through 2020's The Absence of Presence, Kansas has consistently delivered powerful, progressive music mixed with hints of blues, hard rock, southern rock, classical, and AOR to create their sound all their own. Along the way, they've scored countless or timeless hits such as Dust in the Wind, Play the Game Tonight, All I Wanted, and the immortal Carry On Wayward Son. Author Tim Durling has assembled a panel of fellow wheatheads to discuss the entire Kansas studio catalog. From multi-platinum albums like Leftoverture and Point of No Return to recent works such as Somewhere to Elsewhere and The Prelude Implicit, this book puts almost every Kansas composition under the knife. And if that doesn't get you excited to read this, I'm not sure what will, but I do love that. So the book itself, it's got a foreword in it, a brief history overview, then it goes through all 16 studio albums. It does have a discography that goes into more detail, including live albums, compilations, and things like that. There's an interview with the cover artist, the person who painted this, and we open it up, we can actually see, the whole of the artwork there, and I'll talk a little bit more about her in just a bit. There are bios in here from all 29 contributing writers, including myself. And it wraps up, of course, with some thank yous in it. And there's even a page that outlines available merchandise that is related to the book. So a little bit of everything in this book is well done. Author Tim Durling, as I mentioned, from Tim's Vinyl Confessions. You can look him up and find him on YouTube. He's written 3 books. First one was Unspooled: An Adventure in 8 Tracks from 2022. But he also wrote this one here, Down for the Count, the Y&T album review from 2023. And he was nice enough to send me a copy of that. So now I've got the one that I contributed to and this one here, and I'm a fan of both bands. So if you're a fan of either one, they're great books. Now, one of the contributors is Jeff Wagner, who also wrote the foreword in this book. He himself is another author, and he's worked for various record labels, including Inside Out Records, which is the home of Kansas currently, having done The Prelude Implicit and their most recent album, 2020's The Absence of Presence. So this person being, definitely involved with the band and having intimate knowledge and things like that, it's kind of cool that he wrote the foreword for this. But additionally, he wrote the liner notes for Another Fork in the Road, 50 Years of Kansas, this 3-disc anthology that came out in 2022. So if you've got this and you read the liner notes in this, that is the same guy doing the foreword in this new book, just trying to make some cool correlations and connections. Now, some of the other contributing writers that are in the book: Pete Pardo, Sea of Tranquility. I'm sure you guys all know him, having watched my channel and me appearing on Pete's channel. Scott Ladd, The Prog Corner, and I currently film with them talking about whether they are or not prog-related albums. So we started up doing that. That's kind of a cool thing. And then Steve Smits is in here, and he's got a sizable Kansas memorabilia collection and has contributed his collections for photographing in both of these Kansas compilations. So again, another Kansas related thing, part of this book here. Then we got John Wetmore, who's in here, and he contributed to Down for the Count. So if you read that book, you would know him. Jeff Witcher from Jeff Witcher's Vinyl Destination is in here. And then I thought this one was really cool. John Elephant is in here, Kansas vocalist from 1982 to 1984, who appeared on these two albums, Vinyl Confessions and Drastic Measures. So these are two that I actually contribute on. So excited that he was in here on that part. And since I contributed to those, I get to see his name along with my name in the contribution section under each of those, which is, nice little cool thing. Of course, my bio is in here too. And I did want to read you guys that since you're on my channel, just give you a taste of me in case you aren't able to get a hold of this book or read that. But it says, Brendon Snyder is a licensed registered architect in the state of New York and has been practicing in New York City for the last 22 years. However, anyone who knows Brendon knows he is most passionate about music and that he is a historian of music artists that he loves. Beginning his music collection 35 years ago in 1989, he now has over 12,000 CDs. On a whim in 2019, Brendon started a YouTube channel to share his passion for music with others. 4 years later, in over 1,600 videos, 5 million views, and over 20,000 subscribers, the music-based channel has continued to thrive. Visit this growing music community at www.youtube.com, Brendon Snyder. How does that sound, right? That sounded very cool. I like that. Glad to be able to share that with you guys and certainly to be a part of this book here. Now, I mentioned early on, there's an interview with the artist for this book. Cover artist here, Denise De La Certa is the artist. She's actually a tattoo artist, which I found really interesting that, tattoo artists would do this art here, but I guess she does all kinds. So she not only is a tattoo artist, but she designs the tattoos that she does, and she runs her own shop. And it goes into more detail in the interview segment that Tim does with her within the book. The cover concept design, editing, things like that is done by Matthew at Gone North Design. And all the photos of the CDs, albums, tapes, things like that. So like here for Song for America, it shows an 8-track tape. All of that comes from Tim's personal collection, which makes this even more special that his own collection of stuff is in here. But also, so things like this artwork that's here, and they've got that for each of these along the way. And then there's within here, you end up getting other additional things, like cassettes. You get the track listing, and he does it side one, side two for those vinyl fanatics and things like that. That's in here now. The way that this is set up is that Tim generated a series of comments or questions for each album. So he really probes, he really gets into it. And in most cases, he actually discusses each and every track that's on it. So it's not just broad stuff. It really gets into the detail, which is a lot of fun to dive into. And, he provided them to each of the contributing writers. I got a series of questions that were for the ones that I was contributing to, which I do 4 albums in here. And then we responded accordingly, and he took those things and included it in here. So my contributions go to Audio Visions 1980. So this was the last album that featured Steve Walsh on it. This happens to be my favorite album from Kansas, so I was glad that he let me do that one. Vinyl Confessions 1982, the first album to feature John Elephant taking over for Steve Walsh. And then Drastic Measures 1983, the second album that featured John Elephant, and obviously last one that he was part of. Those two I also really, really love. So again, very glad that I got to do those in here. And the other one that I did was their latest album. And again, anyone who knows me knows that I love new music. So I'm not one of those ones that only enjoys the old stuff, the classic stuff, stuff like that. I very much love following my bands, watching them grow and change, and new members and what those different flavors bring to it. And I talk about all that every time members change. So for me, luckily, I got to cover from last of the classic lineup into a new lineup, and now the most present modern lineup of the band, The Absence of Presence for 2020. So this one here, it's the second album with the newer lineup, obviously Prelude, Implicit, and now this one here, but we've got newer members, Ronnie Platt on vocals, Zach Rizvi on guitar, and Tom Brislin on keyboards, who I think does an absolutely outstanding job. And again, I talk about that in here when I get into that part of it. But I wanted to read you an excerpt from the Audio Visions section here. It's just an example of my contribution and what you can expect in this book itself. But it opens up like this. So again, new art that's there. We get to, see a piece of memorabilia there from Tim's collection, and we get to see who contributes to it with yours truly down there at the bottom. And of course, with that, we've got on the other side some more shots from the album, track listing, producer, and things of that nature. So first question that was asked in here was, admittedly, and this is coming from Tim, admittedly, I have difficulty being objective about this album, given it was the first Kansas album I heard in full when I discovered the band in 1992. How was the album received by fans upon its release in 1980? Now, 1980, I would have only been 4 years old, so I can't really speak to it going back there. So the way that I chose to respond to this question here is, and I'll just show you the page there. So they start off, see my last name, Snyder, and then you get the excerpt that I wrote for this. And I said, I came into the band after their heyday. Having been born in 1976, I didn't get into music until the late 80s. Being a child of the 80s, I still love all things of that era and style. So when I first saw the album cover for Audio Visions, it really stood out to me. I love the futuristic space age look of it. I was hooked before I even heard the first song on the album. But of course, once I heard the opening riffs of Relentless, I was sold. The interplay between hard rock and melodic rock has always been one of the band's strengths, and this album has it in spades. So I still find a way to answer every question in here, even when some are throwbacks like that. For some of the more classic people, Pete Pardo, Scott Ladd, those are people that came up with this band all through the way, versus people like me or Tim Durling that came in the band much later. As Tim said, his first album, 1992, for me, I got into them a little bit in the late 80s, early 90s, maybe just a few years before he did. But all in all, I gotta say, for this book here, bottom line on this, I think it's thoroughly explored. It's got very thoughtful questions from Tim in here, his comments that helped spur along very interesting and different points of view from the 29 different contributing writers. And so there's a lot of different ways that this band is viewed from all the different people coming in. And as you saw when I showed you the one for Audio Visions, there's 4 or 5 different people contributing to each one. So it's not all 29 every time, and it's different ones. So as you're going, album to album, you're actually getting different authors and things. And then I do 4 of them in here. But it makes for a very interesting read because it's not just the same thing over and over and over. And here we got all these different points of view, which I think together makes for a very, very interesting and fantastic read. And so not only because I'm in this book, but I would recommend it if you're a fan of Kansas, if you love album review style books like these that go through everything. I love popping on an album and listening to it. So that's what this is here. Don't forget that Tim's got this other great one on Y&T. If you're a fan of that, I'm sure he's working on something new. And, if all things go well, I'd love to get Tim Durling on the channel to do an interview about the book itself and talk to him about what it is that he's doing in the future. So we'll see how this video goes, and we'll go from there. But there you go. Let it be your guide, the Kansas album review. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Certainly check out Tim Durling on his channel, Tim's Vinyl Confessions. And have a great day, and certainly I'll be talking to you real soon. Bye, everyone.